Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. Thank you for joining me. So the introduction of Chaos Dust to the game has increased the importance of the Sand Devil's Necropolis. Prior to this point, I've basically been content to farm stage 7 to get some oils and upgrade my gear that way. But the ability to rework ascensions on your gear, especially when you're min-maxing at endgame, is incredibly powerful. And the dust only drops at stage 25 of Sand Devil's Necropolis. So now I have a reason, we all have a reason, to be able to clear this entire dungeon, get to stage 25, and farm that dust. So I've been hard at work for the past several days trying to come up with a team composition that is relatively free-to-play friendly, and can not only farm stage 25, but actually get us there. Because there are different challenges along the way, and sometimes you might have a team composition that can work on one affinity, but doesn't work on another. And so climbing the stages of the Necropolis can actually be the biggest challenge. Well, what I've done is I've taken a new twist on an old team composition. You're going to recognize the team composition, but the champion that I bring into it may surprise you. It's incredibly free-to-play friendly, and the great thing about it is this duo can clear all 25 stages of Sand Devil's Necropolis. 25 stages, 2 champions, and the best part about it is no legendaries. So if that sounds good to you, you're going to want to stick around. I hope you're ready for it. Let's get started. Just a quick reminder, this Sunday is the very last episode of our Noob vs. Pro live stream series. It's been a fun ride, but all good things must come to an end. My editor son and I have had a ton of fun with this series, and we hope you'll join us for the finale. So Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, join us here on YouTube for our last Noob vs. Pro live stream. I hope to see you there. Okay, so here is the Sand Devil's Necropolis, and as you can see, stage 25 is the only place where the Chaos Dust drops. Now, as of yesterday, I was stuck on stage 15. Now, this is my endgame account. I have some very good champions. I have some very good gear. And originally my plan was to use either Cardiel Ninja or Walking Tomb Dreng, couldn't think of them for a second, to clear this dungeon. And in fact, I have been able to do that. That stage 25 is great for Walking Tomb Dreng because stage 25, you can see just here, is Force Affinity. And Walking Tomb Dreng is Spirit Affinity, so he has strong affinity there. So that's great. Now, the duo that I decided to use is the Godseeker Aniri duo. If you haven't used this duo before or you don't know about this team composition, don't worry. I will go through all of the steps you need to put this together. Now, Godseeker Aniri cannot be replaced in this team composition. I know that she's a Void Epic. That may feel to some players like, okay, is that really free-to-play friendly? In my estimation, that is very free-to-play friendly. She is just an epic, and this is supposed to be late game or end game content. So I think the vast majority of players, by the time they're pushing stage 25, will have access to Godseeker Aniri. If you don't, there are other team compositions. I'm sure I will do more videos in the future on this because I don't want to just only provide you with one method. Godseeker is the easiest way to do this, but not the only way. So the great thing about this is Godseeker can be used with a number of champions. So like I said, Walking Tomb Dreng and Ninja are 2 of the most common, but there are a number of other champions that can be used. But we wanted to be able to not only farm stage 25, we wanted to be able to clear all of the stages in between. And I wanted that duo to be as free-to-play friendly as possible. So I've decided to use no legendaries. And I was struggling. And then I thought about this rare. She's relatively new, but I thought that she might do the job. And in fact, she works great. I'm going to show you who I'm talking about. It is Selenia. It is the Void Rare Selenia, who I have been wanting to find a place for. I think this is a great champion, but I haven't been able to figure out a good place to use her until I try to take on Sand Devil's Necropolis. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the way that the Godseeker Aniri duo works. I'm going to walk you through the fight a little bit, I'm not going to do a deep dive into the mechanics of this fight, but I do want to cover the mechanics that apply to the way the Godseeker Aniri duo works. Now, Godseeker Aniri can work with a number of champions. So if you don't have Selenia and you do have, say, Walking Tomb Dreng, you can do that duo or Ninja or a whole bunch of other champions, but the basics will always be the same. Okay, so the boss has 3 attacks. Now, the big attack, the one that we really worry about, is Feasting Swarm. Feasting Swarm attacks all enemies and it ignores shields, block damage, unkillable, and 100% of the target's defense. The only way to survive this ability is to have a big enough HP pool. That's basically it. However, there is another mechanic that you can use in a situation like with Godseeker Aniri, which is a revive on death passive. So basically, you don't survive this attack, and then you revive on death. Now, after this attack goes off, the boss puts himself to sleep for 2 turns. Now, that's important because while he's asleep, he can actually be debuffed, right? He doesn't get woken up by hits. He will be asleep for 2 turns. There's also a hit counter. You can wake him up by hitting him enough times. But typically we don't do that. He just gets his 2 turns and then he wakes up again. Now you can put him to sleep every other turn if you wanted to bring in a sleep champion. We're not doing that here. So we're just going to let this process happen naturally. Now his second AoE is Dune Tempest. This is also important. This cleanses all debuffs from the boss and then heals him based on the amount of destroyed HP on your team. So the more destroyed max HP you have on your team composition, the more the boss will heal himself. So we have to figure out a way to deal with this heal. And then after healing, the boss attacks all enemies. Now this is really important because if we're using our revive on death strategy, we can't basically die 2 times too quickly. So if we die to Feasting Swarm and then die to Doom Tempest, the game is going to be over. We need to survive Doom Tempest and then die to Feasting Swarm. And that's basically what Godseeker Aniri does. Now, in addition, the boss also has an A1 that attacks all enemies and does some decent damage. We need to survive those attacks as well. So let's go ahead and look at Godseeker Aniri and her skills, and we'll see how she works as part of a team composition in this dungeon. Okay, so here is Godseeker Aniri. Now, she has several skills, but one of the most important skills is her passive. So the second part of this says, if an ally is about to get killed by a fatal hit, preempts that hit and instantly places a revive on death buff on them for 1 turn before the damage is taken. So that big hit, the swarm, whatever it's called, by the Sand Devil will wipe out your team. The revive on death will revive Godseeker Aniri. Typically, it will revive whoever is in the leader spot. So we're going to put Godseeker Aniri in the leader spot, even though she doesn't have an aura. So when the team gets wiped out, she will revive herself. She then has a revive for an ally. So she can revive an ally. And the big part of this that's really important is that it resets the cooldowns of all of their skills. So whatever champion comes back will have full access to all of their skills. Now, as long as you are only using 2 champions, Godseeker Aniri will always be the one who gets the passive, and your 1 damage dealing champion will always get the active revive. Now, there are variations on this team that can actually use food champions. This is not one of those variations, so we're just going to use the 2 champions. Now, the other part of the kit that is really important is she has 2 heals. She has a heal on her A1, although it will not heal Godseeker Aniri, which is not an inconsiderable loss, but it does heal the lowest ally or the lowest healed healthy ally by 5% of their max HP. So she will be healing Selenia with her A1. Now her A2 heals everybody. So this will heal all allies. So this includes Godseeker Aniri. So this is really important for getting Godseeker Aniri's health back to where it needs to be. So if we come back to the boss fight, what's going to happen is this Feasting Swarm is going to kill our team. Godseeker Aniri is going to pop back up based on her passive revive. She is then going to revive her duo partner. At that point, the boss will be asleep. So what you want is you want either an HP burn champion, a poison champion, or a max HP damage champion. So you could, for instance, use a Cold Heart in this. You could use a Royal Guard. Those are also free-to-play friendly options that you could use for this composition. I think the second best option is probably Cold Heart. she may in fact be the best option. But the reason that I've decided to use Selenia is because the stat requirements are going to be a little bit easier to get on Selenia. She's another void champion, so we don't have to worry about affinity. And then you don't have to rebuild your cold heart for this purpose. But if you have an extra cold heart that you're not using somewhere else, and you're happy to build her the way that we build Selenia today, then you could use Cold Heart instead, and she would probably be a little bit faster. Okay, so after the HP burn from Selenia goes out, the boss will take damage, and then we'll use Dune Tempest, and Dune Tempest has to be survived. After that point, you'll get 2 cycles of Rage of the Sands, during which the team has to heal back up, and then Feasting Swarm will kill that team again, or, you know, you don't have to heal back up too much, you just have to survive 2 Feasting Swarm wipes you out, and that's great. Now, you do have to deal with the max HP destruction on your team. Remember that this passive Soul Sustenance says that whenever the boss attacks, he destroys the max HP of all targets by 10%. In addition, whenever an enemy decreases his turn meter, he destroys the max HP of that enemy by the same percentage. This is another reason why Cold Heart can be a little bit tricky, but in this particular composition, we don't have any turn meter decrease, so we don't have to worry about this. We just have to be able to heal back up or repair the max HP damage, destruction damage, whatever it's called, on our champions before the Dune Tempest comes back around and wipes us out. All right, so it's going to be easier to see it in action than to actually just talk about it in theory. So I do want to show you the champions and the team setup. Okay, so here is Godseeker Aniri. Now, she is built perfectly for this composition. And in fact, no matter what champion you are using as her duo, this build should work for you from stage 1 all the way through stage 25. You can see she has about 73,000 HP, 3,700 defense. The speed is really important at 271. Those are the only stats that really matter. You don't care about resistance, accuracy, attack, crit rate, anything like that. I think the minimum HP you could probably get away with is somewhere just under 70,000. So maybe like 68, 69,000 HP. You could benefit from a little bit more defense, but if you had to choose between the two, I would actually go for more HP. I think this defense is totally fine. In fact, you could do even with a little bit less. The most likely scenario is not that you're going to die to like the A1s, but that you're going to die to the A2. So, you know, a little bit more HP, a little bit more defense, doesn't really matter. These stats are pretty good. You have to be close to this, but you don't have to be quite all the way there. However, the speed has to be 271. It can be higher, but it has to be a minimum of 270.1, let's say, because you need to be going fast enough to make sure that you're getting all of the turns in so that your passive comes back up. Remember, this Guardian Angel is on a 4-turn cooldown, so she needs to do an extra turn compared to the boss to make sure that this is up at the right time. In addition, her active revive is also on a 4-turn cooldown again, so we need the right speeds to make sure both of these skills are available when the turn order requires it. Now, there is a way to alleviate a little bit of that speed burden, and we'll talk about that when we get to the Masteries and the gear. Okay, now these are my stats on Selenia. The really important thing here is that you need 525 accuracy to land your HP burns on the stage 25 boss. But I'm only running 404 accuracy. And the reason is that on Selenia's A3, which is her HP burn, she gives herself a 25% increase accuracy. Now, this is fantastic. This is one of the reasons why she is not as stat intensive as other champions. So you're going to be getting 25% additional accuracy. Also remember that when she gets revived by Godseeker Aniri, she will have no skills on cooldown. So we can get an additional 24 accuracy conditionally out of her masteries. So all we really need is 401 accuracy. If we get to 401 accuracy, we will get an additional 100 from our skill, Lunar Ballista, from our increased accuracy. That'll take us up to 500. And then we get the 24 accuracy from the masteries. So if we're at 401, we get to 525, which is the accuracy we need. Now, the speed isn't actually all that important. I think anything over 180 speed should do. And you could go all the way up to Godseeker Aniri's speed at 270 or so. As long as you're one slower than Godseeker Aniri, you'll be fine. So the speed requirement is basically any speed that you can get on her. And so depending on your gear, you're going to have a lot of flexibility there. In terms of her HP and defense, I would like a little bit more HP and a little bit more defense. I don't need a lot more, but I would say something around the vicinity of 3,000 defense and say 68,000 HP should be enough. I'm actually just a little bit shy of that here, but I ran out of silver and I can't regear her anymore. So we're going to see if this gets the job done. I know that I can manual stage 25 with these stats. In fact, I can manual stage 25 with stats that are a lot lower. I first cleared stage 25 with Selenia at 49,000 HP and 2,600 defense and 205 speed. So the stat requirements for clearing to stage 25 are much lower than the stat requirements to run stage 25 on full auto. So I don't think that this is a full auto team just yet, but I think I'm only maybe 3,000 or 5,000 HP away and maybe 100 or 200 defense away. I should be able to get that at some point, but like I said, I'm completely out of silver. I've spent about 30 or 40 million silver making this team. And so this is where we are right now. Okay, so let's go look at the builds of these champions. Okay, so here is Godseeker Aniri again, and as you can see, she is in full regen and immortal gear. I think this is key. I don't know if you could get away with just a regen set and maybe some other defensive set. You might be able to do that. So for instance, you could look for Defiant gear. I imagine that Defiant would reduce the incoming damage from AoE attacks, and that might be enough. But I've gone with the full immortal and regen set instead. As far as the masteries are concerned, I have come down the support and defense tree. Now, the defense tree, I think, is pretty important here. Again, depending on your gear, you may be able to ignore the defense tree or the support tree, maybe one or the other. But I've gone for the maximum effectiveness here. Again, if you have better gear, maybe you could go down the offense tree and get a little bit more damage out of like a War Master ability or whatever. It's not a fast run. This really isn't a fast team, but we're going to be able to clear stage 25 in about 6 minutes. And in fact, almost every stage is going to be right around 6 minutes. We'll probably do it a little bit faster than that with some tweaks to this team composition, but I wanted to make it as reliable as possible. So again, you can look at the masteries here. I think the really important ones in the defense tree are delayed death, but you also have these first two in tier 2 here. So decreases damage from AoE attacks by 5%. That's blast proof. And then rejuvenation increases the amount of healing that you receive. In terms of the support tree, I think that the healing masteries are important. I went for Lore of Steel for a little bit extra HP because I do have that immortal set, but that's not necessarily critical on every build. This Spirit Haste Mastery is what I was talking about in terms of alleviating a little bit of the speed burden. So you're going to get the 8 speed from a dead ally because your duo will die. And so you could actually take 8 speed off the build and run her at 263 and do just fine. Finally, I've come down to Elixir of Life because I wanted that extra max HP. And I don't really see a better choice here in either of these trees. Again, we don't want to mess with the turn order, so we have to avoid all of the masteries that deal with turn meter. Or you also want to avoid Cycle of Magic. You can't like accidentally reset the active revive because that'll mess up the turn order as well. Now, I have gone into rapid response, but remember that Aniri doesn't actually use any buffs. So she's not going to get any turn meter from this. In fact, I just used that to make sure that I could get to Lore of Steel. Okay, now let's take a look at Selenia Nightcloak's build. She is in a regeneration set and a perception set. So the health regen isn't quite as important on Selenia. One of the reasons why I chose her, in fact, was because on her A1, she heals herself by 10% of her max HP. In fact, she gets 20% when an HP burn is on the target. So she's going to be producing a lot of healing on her own. As a result, I didn't need her in an immortal set, and I could get her in a perception set so I could hit the accuracy requirement. Again, you can see I have 404 accuracy. In the masteries, I'm going to be picking up quite a bit of extra accuracy. Here, I am going to get the 20 accuracy when the champion has no skills on cooldown, which will happen every time she's revived. And then I'm going to get this 4 additional accuracy from Swarm Smiter. Again, I went with Lore of Steel for the extra stat bonuses on both just on the perception set on Selenia. I did, in fact, go for Master Hexer. I think this is an important and effective buff. This has a chance to extend the duration of that HP burn, which will just speed up your fight a little bit. In addition, because Selenia's HP burn is not 100% chance, it's a 50% chance on 3 hits. I've taken Sniper to just increase that chance a little bit. And with Sniper, you have about a 91% chance of landing an HP burn. Without Sniper, it's something like an 87% chance. It's a little bit worse. So this is just more likely to speed up your run a little bit better. I've also gone down the defense tree again to try to keep her alive. If I had slightly better gear, I could probably get her into the offense tree. I did, in fact, take Eagle Eye because I think, again, that's the best capstone for these 2 trees for this champion. And that allows me to alleviate a little bit of the stat burden on accuracy further. As a result, I didn't have to use an accuracy banner. You can see I'm in an HP banner, and I didn't have to use an accuracy chess piece. I used a perception chess piece. Now, one of the things that I said earlier in the video is that I originally had Selenia with worse stats, and I was able to clear all the way up manually fighting the fight. And one of the reasons why her stats weren't so good is because this chest plate wasn't ascended yet. And in fact, I ascended her from the oils that I got when I was clearing the stages up to stage 25. So she's gotten more stats as we've gone. I've also made a couple of swaps. I swapped out an accuracy banner when I realized I could get the accuracy requirement without the accuracy banner, and that's allowed me to get some more HP and actually speed as well, because originally my previous banner only had something like 12 speed on it. So I don't think the speed is critical, but it's nice in other content. Okay, so there are the builds. Now let's jump into the fight. So I'm actually going to show this on stage 25. I'm not sure that this will be full auto, but what will happen is there are 2 things that are going on that may reduce your ability to do this full auto. The first is it feels like, and I'm not 100% sure, but maybe one of you can mention it in the comments below if you know, it feels like the max HP destruction mechanic and the heal, like getting that max HP back, that mechanic is bugged. It's not working sometimes. Sometimes it works. I don't know why. I don't know if it's attached to certain floors or affinities, or if it's just, I have no idea what it is, but you're going to see that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And then the second thing that may happen is, depending on if I can survive not the swarm skill, but the other AoE, if I die at one point, I just have to manual to get it back in sync. Because if Selenia dies at the wrong moment, then the passive will proc at the wrong moment, the active revive will proc at the wrong moment, and that will break the speed tune. So you can fix this really easily just by stopping the auto battle and then just doing 1 cycle manually and then putting it back on auto. And I will show you that will probably happen as you're going up through the stages. So as you get to stage 15, then 18, then at 21, it may happen at different times. And so in fact, I did manual a few of the stages a few times just to make sure that I could clear them. But it's basically 100%. It's just not 100% full auto yet. And I think it can be if you have a little bit more HP on Selenia than I have right now. Like I said, I don't think I'm far away, maybe 3,000 or 5,000 HP away. And then I think it would be full auto. So let's go ahead and jump into the fight, and I will kind of walk you through a cycle, and then you can see how the fight plays out. Here we are. We've just spawned in. Now, Godseeker Aniri is faster than the boss, and Selenia is slower than the boss. I don't really think it matters that much for Selenia, but again, we need Godseeker to be in the right cycle, so she needs to go first. So she is just going to do her A1, and then the boss is going to kill our champions. He's going to use his Feasting Swarm and just wipe us out. Godseeker Aniri's passive brings us back, and then she is going to revive Selenia. Now, at this point, the boss is asleep, and now he is susceptible to HP burns or any debuffs. So Selenia is going to use her A3 and apply an HP burn. You can see the increased accuracy on her that allows her to get away with less accuracy than any other champion typically can. Now, Godseeker Aniri will A1, which will heal Selenia. And Selenia will A1, which will heal herself. The HP burn is up there, so it's going to be a 20% heal, so she should be back at full health. Godseeker, Aniri, and Selenia are both proccing heals off of their regen gear. Now Godseeker Aniri should probably use her A2 to max out the health. Yep. And now we get the other AoE. Now this is the AoE that we have to survive, and you can see this AoE also destroys our max HP. So that was the Dune Tempest. Now, for the next couple of turns, the champions need to heal themselves up and repair that destroyed max HP. This is why I should have mentioned in Masteries, you should have these two champions at least Godseeker Aniri should have Miracle Heal. Now, I don't have any blessings on Godseeker Aniri. I just don't have any ascensions on her. So she doesn't have Miracle Heal, which would make this a lot easier. So I put Miracle Heal on Selenia so at least she can repair some of her own damaged max HP. However, if Godseeker Aniri had Miracle Heal, I probably would put Selenia back into Phantom Touch, which is where she was originally, because that might speed the run up a tiny bit. But we need to make sure that she survives the next Dune Tempest, and so we need all of our max HP available. So we're going to run this a little bit longer, and you're going to see she's going to heal some of her max HP. Now this is where it gets weird, because sometimes the max HP doesn't seem to get healed. It should. It's only a 75% chance on Selenia, so you can get into a kind of a bad cycle. But okay, so they died to the correct skill, they get revived, and now we go back through HP burn. We start healing ourselves up. You can see the max HP damage came off finally. And that's it. That's the way this works. So we need to survive Dune Tempest and the 2 Rage of the Sands. We need to die to Feasting Swarm, and then we just cycle again and again. But there will probably be a moment where this cycle breaks. And when it does, I will take it off auto and I will show you how to get back into sync. So we survived that Dune Tempest, but at some point, probably Dune Tempest is going to kill Selenia. It might not. It might be close to full auto. It might be 50% of the times it's going to be full auto, but you can see that max HP is potentially a problem if it's not healed up. So it's almost all healed up. We're doing okay so far. Now, this is a relatively long run. What I found is at full auto or close to full auto, it's just under 6 minutes. It's about 5 minutes, 40 seconds, something like that, maybe 5:50. Normally, I would just play some music and let you watch this, but I'm not 100% convinced that it's going to be full auto all the way. No, and there it broke. So as you can see, there, Dune Tempest killed Selenia because she didn't heal 100% of her max HP back. She still had a little bit of her bar lowered. This is where I think 3,000 or 5,000 extra HP might be enough. Also, maybe a little more defense might help because the Dune Tempest doesn't ignore defense. So if I could get a few more stats on her, I think this would be full auto all the way. But all I have to do here is make sure I don't accidentally use the revive too soon. So I'm just going to A1 twice. We're going to get back around to that Feasting Swarm. So don't use, if I were just autoing, she would use her revive right now. I want to make sure that I don't. Now I'm going to get killed and revive. And now I can put it back on full auto and it's going to go again. Now it could break again. It could break a second time or it could break a third time. So as you can see, this has the potential to be full auto on stage 25. As you are going up through the stages, you'll want to at least watch and make sure that if it breaks that you can capture it, like, stop it and go from there, because it's 100% success chance, but it's not 100% success chance at full auto. If it breaks, you have to catch it. But, it will go for a while. It'll go for several rounds before it breaks. This is unfortunate. I really wanted to get it to the point where it was 100% full auto. I'll keep working on the stats and I'll give you an update probably in the next week. I just need to get, 10 or 12 million silver and maybe get lucky with an ascension on a piece of gear so that I can get her the stats that she needs. Now, I will show you at the end of this run, I have gotten my Walking Tomb Dreng to the point where he can actually do it 100% full auto with the same Godseeker Aniri without any tweaks. So it's basically the exact same composition. but it's just using Walking Tomb Dreng, who is a legendary, of course. He's a strong affinity legendary. That is 100% chance of successful auto. It runs at roughly the same speed. He is not faster than Selenia. He's not faster than Selenia. He's just 100% full auto. So this still hasn't broken again, which is great. But it looks like it probably will soon. Again, I think it wouldn't break if Godseeker Aniri had Miracle Heal. Look how close she was. I think if Godseeker Aniri had Miracle Heal, it would work the whole way. Or if we could get a few thousand more HP on Selenia, it would work the whole way. So still going full auto. And you can just see how the cycle works here. You want to die, like I said, you want your team to die to Feasting Swarm. By the way, if your Godseeker Aniri doesn't die to Feasting Swarm, that's not the worst thing in the world. As long as your Selenia does. So on the way up, the boss might not do enough damage to kill off your team, and that's fine. Like if they survive, that's great. As long as Selenia doesn't die at any other point to any other skills. If she either survives the whole thing, then who cares? Then she just survives the whole way. Or if she dies to Feasting Swarm, then who cares because the passive cycle works. If she dies to any other skill, that's where the problem comes in. And obviously Godseeker Aniri, if Godseeker Aniri can survive stage 25, then she can survive every stage all the way up. One of the really nice things about this composition is that since both champions are void affinity, you don't have to worry about affinity at all. What I found was I tried to do this same team composition with my Walking Tomb Dreng, and he couldn't do it. He kept losing when he was weak affinity. Selenia is never weak affinity, so she never lost. And so far, it's only broken once, which is pretty good. So as you can see, we are pretty close to full auto. Obviously, when you want to farm this, you want to be able to farm it without having to worry about like catching the mistakes. So we'll have to find out what the stat requirements are for that, and I'll give you guys an update when I get that information. But you've seen what my Selenia has in terms of stats, and so if you can build yours just a little bit better than mine, a little bit more defense, a little bit more HP, then chances are you can do this full auto with an epic and a rare, which I think is absolutely fantastic. All right, it is closing in on 9 minutes, but obviously I did some explanations there. This typically runs just under 6 minutes when I'm doing it, full auto, as close to full auto as I can. So this looks like it only broke once, and I think it's gonna be completed with only one break. So we are very, very close to full auto. Now, if you are at a much lower level of Sand Devil's Necropolis, and maybe you're not at this point in terms of endgame, you don't need these stats on these champions in order to get pretty far in the Necropolis. Like I said, I was able to clear the whole thing all the way up to stage 25 with Selenia at 49,000 HP and about 205 speed. I think she could go as slow as about 180, 185, somewhere there. So you can definitely drop her speed. You don't need the full HP to get all the way through if you're manualing. And you could probably, like this would probably full auto, say stage 20 just fine, or any stage in between, any stage that is a good stage in terms of drop rates. So stage 24 is where a lot of people farm. You could also farm stage 20, and that would be a pretty good return in terms of your energy. Okay, so now I did want to show you the Walking Tomb Dreng version as well. Okay, so here is my Walking Tomb Dreng. As you can see, I did have to get to the 525 accuracy threshold. So I was able to do that with the perception gear and an accuracy banner. And in terms of his masteries, I also did go for Eagle Eye, and I have very similar masteries to what I had on Selenia. His total stats here are 77,600 HP, so a lot more HP than on Selenia, a little bit more defense at 3,100, and around the same speed as my slower version of Selenia at 202. So he's not running at 234, but again, I think anything over 180 will get the job done, all the way up to where Godseeker Aniri is at 271. So as long as he's slower than Godseeker Aniri and faster than 180, the speed doesn't really matter. And now here in the AI, you can see all I've done is made the HP burn, his HP burn, the top priority. Remember, when he gets revived, he will use that ability against the boss because all of his skills will be off cooldown. Now, I did use the Masteries. I probably could have reduced his accuracy a little bit because I did have the 24 accuracy from the Masteries as well, but I've landed at 535, so I have a little bit more accuracy than I need. I don't turn off Death's Balance. I don't know that it matters. But this does ignore some defense. It also has a potential to heal Godseeker aniri, so there are some reasons to keep it. Again, you can see he also has no blessings. So these are champions without blessings, with the exception of Selenia, who had the miracle heal on herself, which wasn't enough, but what are you going to do? I tried to make it work at full auto, and like I said, it's very close. This is in fact full auto and should be 100%. So again, one of the big benefits here is that Walking Tomb Dreng is strong affinity against the boss, and as a result, he's much less likely to die from anything except the Feasting Swarm. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this up and let you watch this one. We'll put some music on and make it go fast so you don't have to wait so long. All right, here we go. Okay, there we go. As you can see, just under 6 minutes at 5 minutes and 43 seconds, 226 turns. Yeah, so that's about as fast as this goes. You can see the best is just 529. Might be a little bit faster with little different masteries depending on the gear that you have. So here we have a very expensive option in Walking Tomb Dreng, right? Great legendary, great for this. Strong affinities, giving me 100% full auto duo here with Godseeker aniri. But potentially Selenia, who is just a void rare, could do the exact same job in the exact same amount of time. So if you have Selenia and you have Godseeker aniri, you can start putting together your gear, start climbing up Sand Devil's Necropolis, see how far you can get. Now, I did want to mention a couple of other options here with this duo that might also work, that are also a little bit more free-to-play friendly than Walking Tomb Dreng. So let's go take a look at a couple of other champions we could consider. So one free-to-play friendly option I already mentioned is Coldheart. Again, it's a little bit tricky to get her tanky enough to take you all the way up to stage 25. You can see her stats are actually worse than Selenia's. So I think getting her in the gear you would need to get her in to be able to do this could be even harder. The nice thing about this champion, though, is the enemy max HP actually hits harder than the HP burn, so potentially you could shave some time off. So if you have the gear, you could go for Coldheart, and that could be an option. One uncommon option, which would be kind of interesting, is to try out Armiger. Now, in this rare case, I think what we would actually want to use Armiger for is his A2. He has an enemy max HP hit. He would be strong affinity against stage 25. His stats are okay. They're not great. He has a little bit of a low HP pool, but his defense is a little bit better. So chances are it would be a stretch like with Selenia to get the stats you need. But if you could, this would be a very cheap option to have at least a stage 25 clear. I'm not sure that Armiger would get you through all of the magic affinity stages where he's weak affinity, but you could certainly try Armiger out at stage 25. Another strong affinity champ here, an epic at stage 25, would be Farrakhan the Fat. Farrakhan the Fat does have an HP burn and 2 poisons on his A2. So again, he could be a very good champion for this fight. I do think you want to be careful with Farrakhan the Fat because of his passive. He will deflect some damage onto his allies. So he could potentially kill your Godseeker aniri if you're not careful. But if she has some extra leeway in her build, then Farrakhan the Fat could do a really good job with his HP burn and poisons. There's one more strong affinity epic that I wanted to mention. and that's Gorlos Helmall. I actually really like this champion. He does have pretty good defensive stats here for an attacks-based champion at 1100 defense. His HP pool is very low, though, so you may, again, have a little bit of a tough time keeping him alive, but he is strong affinity at stage 25. His A3 has a 100% chance of placing an HP burn and a decreased accuracy debuff. It does fill his turn meter when it's critical. That shouldn't make any difference, but that's just something to know. You can build him with 100% crit rate. He'll hit a little bit harder. Okay, and finally, I wanted to mention another Void Affinity champion who I think potentially, like Selenia, could get you all the way from stage 1 to 25 without having to swap champions or compositions. And that is she's a newer epic, I think, Frenzy the Cackler. So she has a very good defense stat here at 1443, and her HP pool is about the same as Selenia's at 16.7k. So you should be able to get the stats onto her. She has a base accuracy of 15, which helps a little bit. You do not have Selenia's, accuracy buff, so that's going to be a little bit of an issue. Frenzy's A2, she has this HP burn. It is a 100% chance. It's a 3-hitter. And then it fills her turn meter for each HP burn debuff placed by the skill, so she may actually get an extra hit in. She does have this passive that increases her defense by 2% each time an HP burn debuff is activated on enemies. So this is going to make it more likely that she survives that second AoE with the increased defense. Her A1 does have a chance of instantly activating an HP burn debuff on the target, which is also nice, just means you burn through that a little bit faster. Activations on this boss really aren't necessary unless you have a HP burn extension somehow. So, you can do that with the Mastery, and then you burn through that HP burn before the boss actually cleanses his debuffs. Remember, he cleanses his debuffs, and he gets he does more damage based on the number of debuffs he cleanses. So when you have the HP burn up for 3 turns, having an activation can make sure that he never actually gets that extra damage out. Okay, so that is it for this team composition. Definitely let me know in the comments below, did you ever think that Selenia Nightcloak would actually feature in endgame content? I was certainly hoping she would when she was released. I love her kit. I just think her stats are a tiny bit low. You can see that 13.380 HP pool is just tiny. If it weren't for that, if her HP pool were, I actually thought it was a little bit higher. If her HP pool were up around 16,000 or so where Frenzy's is, I think it would be a lot easier to make sure that she was full auto at stage 25, but I still think it's possible. So if you are out there and you are willing to give it a try, if you have Selenia Nightcloak and you have the gear, let me know what the stat requirements are so I can pass them along to the rest of the community. All right, don't forget to hit the like button for this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and consider joining our Discord community. Thanks so much for hanging out. I've been Colred, and I will see you in another video soon.